So what I'm going to talk about today is this announcement that the government has made, the UK government has made, about how they're going to force YouTube in particular to change their algorithm to ensure that what they call trusted sources, which is their sources, BBC, ITV, Guardian, are going to, any videos that they produce, they're going to come at the top of your YouTube feed, regardless of whether you actually want that or not. Now, I think there's probably quite a lot of people who, the usual suspects, they'll have done a bit of doom porn about this is the end of the world and whatever. What I'm going to talk about today is just what I believe to be the implications of them doing this. So first off, I'm going to use an analogy. So do you remember when you were younger and you were doing dating? There was always people that tried too hard. And how did that work out for them? If you were trying too hard, did it not always backfire? And this is what I think will happen with this initiative. I'll just put the screenshot on now. And if you don't know about it, you can read it and pause it and stuff like that. But for me, it smacks of somebody who's desperate, absolutely desperate. And most people, they don't like desperados. They don't like tryhards. It's not cool, is it? So they might force YouTube into pushing their approved media higher up in your search findings. But guess what's going to happen? The end result is that it's going to kill, just as what happened with X when it was taken over by controlled opposition. What's happened is that X has been killing itself, and where you have to pay to ensure that your messages, your tweets get seen by other people. So it's the same sort of thing. People will give up on it. If this comes into force, then expect a massive drop off in the number of people using YouTube. People just won't do it anymore because that was the whole point of YouTube. People went to YouTube to avoid the BBC, the ITV, and all the other kind of approved all the approved nonsense. These official channels, they were just caught out lying all the time. So out of desperation, that's how true alternative media began, because of a lack of trust. So actually, the problem isn't people not being able to find videos produced by BBC Verify. That isn't the problem. The problem is a lack of trust. People, and just poor quality and just lies. People don't want to spend their valuable time watching what is self-evident propaganda masquerading as news. So this is like the important point. It'll just, what will happen is it will just hasten this trend that I've been talking about, which is let's call it de-digitalization, which is people will go back to other ways of amusing themselves if the internet becomes controlled, censored, and therefore boring. They can't force you to consume their content. That they think they can. They think that you're completely addicted to watching videos on YouTube, and they think that you will watch anything, even their crappy content that you went on the internet to initially avoid. They've got another thing coming. Another thing that I'm going to talk about that's kind of connected, that's to do with a lack of credibility. That's how the BBC and ITV and Guardian, that's how they killed themselves in the first place, was their own lack of credibility. They destroyed their own credibility. Now, something very similar is going on now in sports ball. There's a big competition. I know it's bread and circuses, but that's not the point, right? You have to kind of like see past this a little bit, because there's some interesting things going on. So without going into it in too much detail, the competition is completely rigged. And what I find quite interesting is it's quite blatant. Some of the match fixing has been just so in your face. And then it's kind of quite interesting to think about, why did they do that? And I think one element definitely is it's like a humiliation ritual. They want to see, no doubt, they'll be looking at the viewing figures and they'll be pissing themselves laughing if people continue to watch this rigged sports ball competition, even though it's been pointed out to them that it's rigged. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, they've rigged it. So the rational thing for people to do is just to go, no, I'm not wasting my time on any more of this. But what they want is almost like Stockholm syndrome style, that people still talk about this kind of rigged competition and spend hours of their lives watching it. I've mentioned this before, but I firmly believe, and this is the case in all sports, the video refereeing and referrals and stuff, that was actually introduced to make match fixing in sport more easier to achieve. It gives an extra opportunity to swing a result in the direction that's being desired. In this case, I don't think, in many cases, it's about gambling. So the mafia gangs, they sell gambling. So it's kind of quite handy to be able to fix results. But I think in this case, there's also an element of them, as I say, humiliating the peasants and laughing at them. And, you might not like sports ball, but many people do. And it's one of the things for some people that, one of the last few things that they enjoy. I remember when I lived in England, I kind of felt that myself when I used to go and watch lower league football in the flesh. Incidentally, that wasn't rigged because there was no gambling money in it, and there was no video referral and whatever. It was kind of fairly genuine. But I remember thinking at the time, that's the only thing that they hadn't turned into some sort of woke, miserable mess. And they don't like us enjoying ourselves. So to take this kind of this world sports ball event that lots of people have been looking forward to, and I don't know, arranging parties around it, and they want to wreck it. They want to take away that last bit of enjoyment. Something else that I noticed too, actually, that's a positive, is you can tell who's who again. Like many of these pundits on the TV, the famous names, often they're ex-players, they know the score. So they won't call out the match fixing, for the simple reason that if they do, they'll get cancelled and that's their career over. And that's also the same for the so-called alternative media, most of which are controlled. And you can spot the controlled ones because, like, I don't know, Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer and stuff, they won't call it out either. So for me, it's a filter. Again, I can see who's who. Like, the people I'm interested in are the ones that are not afraid to describe reality. The people that I'm interested in are not the ones who want to try to paint me a fake version of events. They want me to live in a world of unreality TV or internet or whatever. So, again, what's going to happen is those fake channels that broadcast fake stuff, well, they will just lose subscribers. People will move away from it and they'll become thoroughly disillusioned, not only with the sports ball, but also not only with how the mainstream reports it, but also how most of the so-called alternative mainstream report on it, because they're also bought and paid for. And they know that if they start to describe reality and how the games are fixed, and it's the whole competition's a sham, then the YouTube algorithm will be changed against them, and it's by their channel, or they'll get cancelled by, I don't know, some pink-haired mob will come after them. There'll be some high-level engineered spat, and yeah, they'll be in trouble. So they play safe, and they just go with the mainstream narrative as well, even though they're supposedly alternative. So anyway, as I say, they just kill themselves. So kill, metaphor YouTube, they kill off their own channel. That's what I meant. I wasn't talking about like physically harming anything. Just to make that one absolutely clear. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say today. I think there are some positives in it, in that whether they know it or not, they're pushing people away from consuming media over the internet, because they're just making it all crap. And this thing about the search results and stuff, it'll just push people further away. You know, they just give up on it completely. And you know, who knows, they might go back to reading books, or going around to their friend's house for a coffee and chewing the fat themselves, and oh my word, forming their own opinions. Woohoo! So, you know, in economics, we talk about the law of unintended consequences, and I think these technocrats, they're not very clever, and they don't realise that this regulations that they want about forcing YouTube to change its own algorithm, it will actually backfire on them, and it will create the exact opposite of what they actually want. So yeah, it's a nice sunny day, and it's Friday. Hyvä viikonloppua, and yeah, I'm off for a swim. So all the best, and God bless.